So today we are beginning a brand new teaching series, and that just means over the next few weeks I'm going to be unpacking kind of a thought over several weeks and like episodes, if you want to think of it that way. And you're at the beginning, so you can join us on this journey for the next few weeks. You don't have to feel like you just walked into the middle. And here's the title of the series. It's called Puzzled. It's called Puzzled, and here's the premise. From the moment you were born, you have been on a journey. And part of that journey of kind of putting your life together is that you have been assembling the pieces of your life because you kind of have a picture in your mind of what you want your life to look like. Like for instance, like the front of a puzzle that you purchase at the store gives you a picture of the end result. You have a picture in your mind of the end result that you wanted your life to look like. Now, your picture is different from my picture. You know, for your picture, it might be a family or a certain achievement or a standard of living. It doesn't matter what the picture is. You have one, and you have been choosing the pieces of your life based on that picture. You've been saying, oh, I'll go to school here, I'll date them, I'll marry them, I'll do this, based on you're trying to put this picture together. And what happens, though, is as life goes along, something happens that you end up stuck or puzzled. You could be in a place right now where you have a decision to make that you never thought you'd have to make. You could be in a place right now where someone you thought would always be a part of your life isn't a part of your life anymore. You could be in a place where there's a difficult decision, circumstance. It's just got you puzzled and you don't know what to do. You're at a place where you've got some of the pieces, but you haven't got it all figured out yet. And this series is meant to help you get unstuck or to address this puzzled state that you might be in. Now, let me say this up front. I hold a very strong belief that I want to share with you, and it's this. Especially if you're a guest today, I want to say it this way. I don't believe you're here by accident. I don't believe you're here by invite. I don't even think you're here because of a guilt trip from your mother. like I think you're here for a divine reason. I believe that God has moments in our lives where He chooses to help us align the moments of our lives, where He reaches in and shows us that He cares about us and that He wants to be a part of helping us piece together our lives. And I believe with all my heart that is today is one of those moments for you. I don't think you're just here by accident. I believe that if you'll open up your heart and not just try to check the box today, that you actually could hear from God, that He could show you something that would help you put the next piece of your life together. And so I want you to challenge you to open your heart to that today. Now, today's message is, if you want to give it a title, here's the title. It's called The Missing Piece. The missing piece. And here's where it comes from. So a few months ago, Kayla we were coming into a weekend and she got this crazy idea. She said, hey, why don't we do a puzzle this weekend? And I thought, yeah, we haven't done a puzzle in years. Let's do a puzzle. So she said, well, you need to go get one. So I went to Target to buy a puzzle because if Kayla goes to Target, it is detrimental to our financial life. And so I went to Target to get the puzzle and I got it. It's about, 500 pieces or so, and we spread it out on the table and, we get into it, And after the first hour, you're thinking, this is great. Like this is fun. Why don't we ever do puzzles? And then by hour 6, you're like, now I know why we never do puzzles. This is ridiculous how long this is taking. We got all these kids to take care of, and now we got to put this thing together, And what were we thinking? And here's the thing. After an embarrassing amount of time, we got the puzzle to where it was nearly finished, and that's when we recognized the unthinkable. We had a missing piece. Now, here's the problem I have with that. You say, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm a bit OCD. And so a missing piece to me is a major issue. And so, I've got to find it. I mean, we cannot have this puzzle and it not be complete. And so I'm, turning over drawers and flipping couch cushions. I mean, it looked like an FBI raid had taken place in this house looking for this missing piece. I call our 3 kids down, interrogate them. Hey, did you take this piece? Did you steal this? You got to empty your pockets right now on the table. I want to say, anything to find this missing piece. Well, we couldn't find it. And so we just had to end this puzzle adventure without this piece. And I'm just going to tell you, I still feel incomplete because of it. Like, there's still part of me. I'm just incomplete because we couldn't finish that puzzle. But here's why I tell that story. If you and I were to sit down one-on-one, and after we got through the pleasantries, let's say we're having coffee or something, after we got the pleasantries, I believe that if you were honest, many of you would say, yeah, there seems to be in my life something missing. Like something in my life is just not, like, and you would say, I don't know how to put it into words exactly. Like for some of you, you would say, well, it's not something tangible like you could buy. It's just this constant feeling. And it's not like it's strong all the time, but just, every once in a while when I get reflective or maybe in a quiet moment, I don't know, there's like some dissatisfaction that's still in me somewhere. And I can't figure it out. I mean, there's something missing. There's something missing. I believe many people live with that. And so here's the reality of this is that I believe it's my personal experience and also my professional opinion that what you're describing could be summed up in one word, and here's the word, happiness. You are searching for the missing piece of happiness in your life. And now, happiness is defined differently by all of us. We all have a different definition of it. But it is universal in the fact that if I asked nearly everyone, what do you want out of life? Most people are going to say, I just want to be happy. I want to be happy. And here's the thing, that's not new. I mean, that's the way we've always been. It's almost the way we're wired. For instance, 1,600 years ago, one of the most influential theologians that's ever walked the face of the earth, a man who helped frame beliefs we still have today, here's what he said. He said, every man whatsoever his condition. So every man and woman, no matter if you're rich or poor, young or old, no matter your condition, desires to be happy. You want to be happy. Now, here's the thing, though. For our desire and hundreds of years of desiring this, we're missing this. I mean, most people aren't happy. I mean, scroll through Facebook and you'll see the plethora of unhappiness that is out there. And you can see it in our culture. For instance, antidepressants are up 400% in the last decade in our culture. Not only that, in a recent poll, 60% of married couples said they were unhappily married. Not only that, but 50% of the people in this room, this half of the room would say that you live under constant stress. And then when it's not about stress and divorce and depression, you know what it becomes about? Something unique to our culture is this crippling comparison we live with. Because when I'm not happy, I get to scroll through and see how happy you are in your life. And it bothers me that I'm not and you are. And now here's the thing, for all the happiness that's missing, it's not because we haven't tried. I mean, we have tried to be happy. We've done everything. I mean, we've tried people, like we've dated different people, we've worked in different places, we've changed out our friends, we've tried with people, we've tried with like positions. I mean, I went to a new place to work, I tried starting my own business. We've tried with purchases. I mean, if you've ever been up on late night TV, they promise you all you need to be happy is a Snuggie and a shake weight and you'll be happy. The problem is though, your closet's full of junk and you're still not happy. You know, and so after a while, you know what we do with this dissatisfaction? And this is nearly all of us. When we can't figure out what the missing piece is, we decide to spend our evening staring at a screen so that we can not have to think about the missing piece. And this is what happens to all of us, but guess what? It's not just to us, it's also to our heroes. The people we look up to the most are struggling with the same thing. For instance, Steve Kroft, who is a 60 Minutes correspondent, several years ago interviewed superstar quarterback Tom Brady. Now, just a little context, Tom Brady is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Tom Brady is literally married to a supermodel, and Tom Brady has millions of people who adore him. Not in St. Louis, but around the world, millions of people who adore him. And so Steve Kroft said to Tom Brady, who appears to have it all, he asked him about his state of satisfaction. He basically said, Tom, how happy are you? And here's the quote. This is what Tom said. Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings, which is 6 now, and still think there is something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life, but me, I think, God, it's got to be more than this. And so Steve Kroft followed up and said, well, Tom, what do you think's missing? And you can read it. He says, quote unquote, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. And now, this is not just a crisis of our day. This has actually been going on for a long time. It's a human issue. But luckily for us, Jesus himself has a conversation on this very topic. As a matter of fact, Jesus has a conversation with the Bible's version of Tom Brady, someone who's got it all together, on this very topic. And Jesus, uniquely though, doesn't just talk about it. Jesus offers a solution to our missing piece problem. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read you the passage, and over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you 3 observations, just 3 things that the man who was talking to Jesus learned about trying to find the missing piece of happiness in your life. Now, here's the passage. It's Mark chapter 10, and let me just read the whole thing to you. It says, as Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him. And he fell on his knees before Jesus, and he said, good teacher, what must I do to receive eternal life? Now, let me say it this way. Jesus is a teacher of many teachers in this culture, so he's not like the only teacher. But the question he's asking is not the way we think about things. Like when we say, well, how do I get eternal life? We're asking, how can I go to heaven and avoid hell? You know, we're thinking about the afterlife. That's not the way the Jewish people thought about it. In this context, here's what he was saying. Jesus, how can I be right with God, at peace in my life for eternity? Like how can I start eternal life now where I stay? Basically, how can I be satisfied? How can I be happy forever? And then Jesus says, well, why do you call me good? He just wants to see kind of where this guy lands. And he says, Jesus answered, no one is good except for God. And then Jesus says something to him. He says, you know what the commandments say. So Jesus is basically saying, hey, are you familiar with the Jewish custom? There are 613 laws or rules. They're rules that we believe that the Jewish people believe that if you hold these, you'll be in right standing with God. You'll be satisfied. You'll have what you want, this happiness. Have you tried to keep the rules, Jesus said. And Jesus reminds him of the rules. He says, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not be false witness, do not cheat, honor your mother and father. And the man stops Jesus and says, teacher, I've obeyed all these commandments since I was a boy. I've tried that. And Jesus looked at him and loved him, and he said this, you are missing one thing. Jesus looks at him, and he looks at all he's tried and all he's done. He says, there's something missing. There's a missing piece. And here's what he says. This is his solution. Go sell everything you have, give the money to those who are poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. Become one of my followers. And the man's face fell, and he went away sad because he was very rich. He was very rich. And so let me give you 3 things that this man learned as he was searching for the missing piece. Let me just give you 3 things. Here's the first one. This man learned, and he realized that happiness is a spiritual issue. Happiness is a spiritual issue. Now, if you were to read that passage in the Bible often has like what we would call headers that kind of give you a heads up on what you're about to read. And the header for the passage I just read, it reads in most Bibles, the account of the rich young ruler. The rich young ruler. So this guy is not just a man. Everybody knows him as the rich young ruler. Someone who's rich, someone who's young, and he's in charge. This is his reputation. So when he walks up to Jesus, Jesus knows who this guy is because everybody knows who the rich young ruler is. Now here's the thing. His title alone, his reputation of rich young ruler, it unpacks for us that he has tried some things to be happy. For instance, we know because he's the rich young ruler, he's tried affluence. I mean, this guy, if you read it, historians believe that he had so much wealth that his wealth would make Warren Buffett's accounts look like a child's piggy bank. I mean, this guy had bank. He had tons of money. And he's tried money. And then he's not only tried money, but he's also got appearance going for him. Because, I mean, maybe if my money won't make me happy, zipping this, tucking that, pulling, getting in, that'll make me happy. Well, now, I don't know if this guy was good looking. But I do know if you got money, you're more attractive. And so my guess is that he was good looking and people thought him as appearance was good. And then also we know he's got accomplishment. I mean, he's the rich young ruler. Like he is in charge. He don't work for anybody. He doesn't have to punch the clock. He's not showing up 9 to 5. He's the ruler. He's the rich young ruler. And he's accomplished a lot. And then we also know that because of all that, he's got a claim. We know that people know who he is. I mean, if you're in the Bible and it starts with rich young ruler, it tells us people know who you are. So this guy's probably got more followers than the Kardashians. I mean, this guy knows what it is to be in charge. He knows what it is to have money. He knows what it is to look good. He knows what it is to have accomplished. Then why is he not happy? Well, I mean, he's got everything that we swear we need to be happy, so why isn't he happy? Because this stuff doesn't make you happy. You say, well, I'd like to try and see if it does. No. Seriously. This stuff doesn't make you happy, and you already know that. I mean, it'll offer you a moment of happiness, but it doesn't keep you happy. You know this. You know why you know this? Because you don't have to be the rich young ruler to know that this stuff doesn't make you happy. You could be like the broke old servant, and you know this doesn't work. You know why? Because 10 years ago, think back 10 years ago, there was something that you thought, if I could get that, if I could work there, if I could experience that, if I could date them, like you thought you had something 10 years ago that you go, if I could have that, I would be happier. Everybody does. Everybody thinks if I made that much or I lived there, I could be happier. And guess what? 10 years later, chances are you have experienced or acquired some of it. Like the car you used to think that make you happy, you own now. The place you used to think if you had lived there, you experienced some of it. And guess what? You're still not happy. You're still not happy. You know why? Because this version of happiness is like caffeine. It works for a moment, but it eventually wears off. And so you know this doesn't work. And this guy figured out it didn't work. He tried all this thing. And so one day he comes and he says, you know what? Maybe this isn't an external issue. Maybe this is an internal issue. Maybe happiness isn't about all that I possess or the position I hold. Maybe it's something deeper on the inside of me. I'm going to let you in on a secret. You are a mind, a body, and a spirit. Now, you may, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, this is your first time here, that's true about you. You are a mind, you are a body, and you are a spirit. And the thing is that a lot of times in our life, our mind, we address it. We have mental health. We address our bodies with physical health, but often our spirits go unaddressed in our lives. And your spirit is the eternal, invisible part of you that connects with God. And oftentimes it goes unaddressed, like in his life. And so what happens is that he figures out, I cannot address happiness without also addressing God in my life. Now, for some of you, that's where the train goes off the tracks. Because for you, God and happiness are opposites. Those things they should never, which of these does not match? Well, God and happiness in my mind. Like when I was a kid, I grew up about some well-meaning church people, but they made me think that God was against fun. Like everything that I liked was sin. Like you like good music? Sin. You know, you like certain movies? Sin. You like pretty girls? Sin. You like breathing? Sin. You know, I mean, like everything was a sin when I was growing up. And so after a while, it starts to build in my mind that God and happiness are actually polar opposites. And you know what's funny about that is that what I thought as a kid, many people think today as adults. Like some of you have even thought, man, for me to get right with God, for me to become, a person of faith, that would mean I'd have to stop doing the things I enjoy. I'd have to sell my boat. I'd have to stop playing, on the team. I'd have to stop smiling. I'd have to read the Bible 23 hours a day. I have to get rid of all my sinner friends. I mean, I'm just telling you, I may not be right, but they're real sinners. I'd have to get rid of them. You start thinking, and let me just say, I understand that. But I'm also telling you it couldn't be further from the truth. You know why? Who do you think created all the things you get to enjoy? Like, who do you think created taste buds for the food that you get to enjoy? Who do you think created the food? Who do you think created laughter? Who do you think created music? Who do you think created art? Who do you think created marriage? Who do you think created sex? Who do you think created the center of your brain that releases dopamine when you're having an amazing experience? Why would God create exhilaration when we jump into a cool pool on a hot day? Why would God have us to enjoy a hot shower after a hard day's work? Why would God put it in you to love swinging a golf club? Why would God put it into you to love listening to an audio book on a drive? Why would God put it into you to love running through the park? Why would God have designed you to be happy if he didn't want you to be happy? See, this is what this guy's figured out, and I hope you'll get this today. God is not in the way of your happiness. God is the way to your happiness. Listen, you're not going to find it without addressing yourself spiritually. You know why? Here's why. Because your happiness is not a natural, it cannot be met naturally. It's a spiritual problem that needs a spiritual solution. So you know what that means for you? That you need to realize that trying to find happiness without God is like trying to find water without wetness. It's like trying to find the sun without light. No one knows you better. No one wired you up with more detail. No one understands what you want and how you want it more. No one can bring more contentment or satisfaction. No one knows how to find the missing piece quicker. So stop trying to buy it. Stop trying to create it. Stop trying to order it. Stop trying to position it. You need a spiritual solution for what is a spiritual problem. Okay? Now that's the first thing you learned. Here's the second thing you learned. He discovered Jesus is the only solution. Now, he did not only tried wealth and fame and power. The Bible tells us he also tried something else. I hope you caught it. He tried religion. Remember, Jesus said, you tried those 613 rules? Have you tried to do the right thing? Have you tried to appear the right way? Have you tried to do that? And he said, yeah, Jesus, I've tried that, and it disappointed me too. And I bring that up because of this. Many people, once they realize they have a spiritual issue, they always try to answer it with a religious answer. And that's a grave mistake, because religion cannot deliver to you what you desperately need. Listen, religion says that you have to earn it, that you have to do it, that you have to sign up to be in the right club, you have to talk the right way, you have to wear the right clothes, that you have to be around different friends. Religion says that you have to do it all, which means your happiness then is just dependent on your latest performance. Which is why religious people are happy for a little bit, but then they become more miserable than ever before, because they've been trying to do something instead of what Jesus offers. Jesus didn't invite this guy to do anything. He didn't invite him to memorize anything. He didn't invite him to attend something. He didn't invite him to become a part. Jesus offered this man not religion, but relationship. Jesus said, follow me. Come on a journey with me. Let's be me and you in relationship. You know why? Because Christianity is summed up in one word, and the word is not ritual, and it's not religion. Christianity is summed up in relationship. Jesus did not come to establish a new religion. Jesus came to mend a broken relationship between you and God. Jesus doesn't offer religion. Jesus is not asking you to do anything. Jesus says, I want to know you personally. I want to be in a relationship with you. See, for some of you, the reality is this. You've been in religion, which means you know God by reputation. You know him by what others have said. But you don't know him in a personal relationship. You don't know his voice. You don't know what he has for your life. You're trying to live off someone else's revelation of who God is, and it'll never bring you happiness. And so Jesus says, you want a personal relationship with me. Follow me. And now let me say it this way. You say, well, how do you have that? I've heard people say that. How do you have a relationship with God? I can't see him, smell him, touch him. How do you do that? Your relationship with God works the same way that any relationship works. You have to give for a relationship to grow, there's one thing you've got to give it. Here it is, time. Listen, the people you know the best, you've given the most time to. The people you don't know at all, you've not given any time to. It's no different with God. If you want to know God better, give God more time with your life. Listen, I'm going to challenge you to do something. I'm going to challenge you that if you really want a personal relationship with God, like that's really offered, I'm going to challenge you to give me the next 3 weeks to keep showing up the next 3 weeks on Sunday. It's an hour and 10 minutes each Sunday. Give me 3 hours. Give God 3 hours of time and watch what he can do as he reveals a relationship to you. Watch what he does. Just give God some time, and God will help give you what you've been searching for. Now, I must bring something up here, though. When Jesus says, come follow me, it's very specific. Here's what, and if we're not careful, we miss this. This is what makes Jesus different from every other spiritual leader who's ever walked on the face of the planet. Jesus does not say to this man, you are missing several things. Jesus says you are missing one thing, and that one thing is me. He said, you're missing me. So basically, Jesus says, you're not going to find it anywhere outside of a relationship with me. And that's a bold claim to not to claim that you know the way or that you can help, but that you are the embodiment of what someone needs. Jesus has this pattern in his ministry where he doesn't claim like most spiritual leaders. Like Jesus never said, hey, I'll show you the light. Jesus said, I am the light. Jesus did not say, if you're spiritually hungry, I'll bring you to spiritual bread. He said, I am the bread of life. You come to me and eat. Jesus did not say, if you're spiritually thirsty, that I can show you a good place to drink. Jesus said, you come to me. I am what you thirst for. Jesus did not say, I know where the door is. He said, I am the door. Jesus didn't say, I know a way. He didn't say, I know some truth. He didn't claim to have a wisdom for life. Jesus said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. You won't find it outside of me. I alone hold the satisfaction of your soul. I alone know how you're put together to bring you contentment. I am the missing piece, and you can't find the happiness anywhere outside of me. And that's bold of Jesus. So bold that it must be true if he's willing to say it. Jesus basically says, you get me, you get everything you've been looking for. Now, it reminds me of a story. There was a wealthy man who had a beautiful wife and had an only son who he adored. And as a way of loving them and doting on them, he amassed both of them great collections. He amassed her a collection of art and furniture, and his only son a collection of memorabilia. And he just, that was his way of loving on them. And so over the years, these collections had gotten pretty vast, and they even had a reputation in the community. People knew of his exquisite taste and these vast collections. Well, this family took a sad turn, and one day, due to illness, his wife died, and a few years later, due to an accident, his son died. And then several more years passed. He lived in this house with these big collections, but eventually he too died. And so per his will, they set up an estate sale so that people could come and by auction get his belongings, these big collections. And so hundreds of people came because they wanted to have access to this art and furniture and memorabilia, and they could not wait to get access to what was such great collections. And so everyone's filled the room, and the auctioneer stands up and he gives a few instructions, and then he says, our very first piece, we're beginning the auction, our very first piece is this. And they remove the cape, and it's a small little picture, poorly framed, and it's of this man's only son. And to be honest with you, no one in the room has any desire to have it. It's not unique. It's a personal heirloom of this man. So he opens the bidding and says, will anybody bid on the picture of this man's son? Nobody bids. He says, anybody at all? Silence. Everybody's there for the more expensive stuff. Again, anybody want this picture of the man's son? And in the back of the room, there was an elderly man who was standing against the wall. He raised his hand and said, I've served as the butler for this family for years. And I don't really have anything to offer, but if no one wants the picture of that man's son, I will gladly take it. The auctioneer scans the crowd again and says, anyone here want this picture? Any bid at all for this picture? Silence. They're ready to move on. So he awards the picture of the son to the butler. The butler comes up. He hands him the picture. The butler looks at it for a moment, puts it on his hand, walks back and stands on the wall again. As people settle back in, ready for the better stuff, all of a sudden the gavel of the auctioneer slams down and he says, auction is now closed. All the people are stirring around saying, what's going on? We only did this one item. And he said, per this father's will, the person who gains control of the picture of the son inherits all that is in the estate. And people are stirring around and saying, what? That's not the way this works, whatever. And he said, let me summarize it for you. Essentially, he who has the Son has it all. And that is what your Heavenly Father put together when He put you and I together. He said, essentially, he who has my Son has it all. There is no happiness, no contentment outside of a relationship with Him. If you want to know what it is to be truly happy, essentially, you got to have my Son because it's all in a relationship with Him. Now, here's the last thing he learned. He struggled with what happiness required. Struggled with it. I did a little research, and there's several keys to happiness. You could Google it. For instance, in the book Flourish, a doctor of psychology writes, it's a bestseller. He writes there are 5 keys to happiness. And then there's another doctor who runs the study program for Stanford University. She believes that there are 6 keys to happiness. And then the editor of Live Happy magazine, which who even knew that was a thing, she wrote that there are 10 keys to happiness. Jesus Christ, who authored the best-selling book in all of human literature, writes that there's only one key to happiness. And here's the key to happiness: surrender. Surrender. That's not the key we like, but it's the one that's required. And here's why it's required: because God says you either go all in with me or I can't help you. Here's what he's basically saying. Either you can piece together your life or I can piece together your life. But we can't both be working on the same puzzle. And so you have to surrender leadership. You have to surrender your life. And Jesus said this to this man. Remember, he said, go sell everything that you have and give it away to the poor. And then come follow me. Now, most people mistake this. Jesus is not saying this that he has an issue with money. You can follow Jesus and be rich. There's no problem. Jesus is not talking about poverty or philanthropy. Jesus is talking to something deeper, and here it is. Jesus says, you have tried to find happiness in all your possessions. And what's required for you to find happiness is to stop pursuing what cannot bring you happiness and pursue the only one who can bring you happiness. Here's what Jesus is saying. You can't add me to all the other things you've tried. Either I'm in the lead or it doesn't work. And that's why it requires surrender. And man, that's tough, isn't it? It's tough to think about giving God your life. To the thing that's most, it's tough to think, God, I'm going to look to you for leadership before anyone else. It's tough to think about putting God first in the way I do my time and my thinking. I mean, it's just tough. But it is what's required, Jesus said. Now, let me say it this way, because I think this could help you. Surrender is a lot easier when you're certain the person asking for it has your best interest in mind. For instance, my kids, it took me forever to get them to jump off the ledge of the pool into the water and let me catch them. Because for them, they're just, it's hard to surrender sure footing. It's hard to jump from something that's so sure into I'm not sure. But you know what did it? Is when I stood up and they were sure that I wanted best for them. Now they won't stay on the platform, all that jumping from every angle, but because they're now sure that they can surrender what they're standing on because I have their best interest in mind. And that's what Jesus did for this man. I want you to see a verse you probably missed. It's verse 21. Before Jesus ever told him what to do, here's what it says. Looking at the man, Jesus felt genuine love for him. Jesus didn't ask him to do anything out of harshness or indifference. Jesus said, I have genuine love for you. That's why I'm going to give you this answer. Listen, I don't know how you think God looks at you. I'd say for some of you, you'd say, well, when God looks at me, he's indifferent. And I think for some of you, you'd say, well, God looks at me, he's disappointed. I'm telling you with certainty that when God looks at your life right now, he has genuine love for you. And because of that genuine love, you can be assured that there's never been a moment of any day that he hasn't wanted his best for you. There hadn't been a moment that he hasn't wanted what's best for you. As a matter of fact, God wants what's best for you more than you even want it for you. So how can that be true? God was so committed to your happiness in this life and forever in eternity that he gave his son to die so that you could have it. God's got more skin in the game to your happiness than you've got in the game for your happiness. And but I want to encourage you with this. With God, surrender never means subtraction. God always gives you more than you gave up. God's going to, when you give him leadership, if you go all in with him, he always gives you more than you ever dreamed he would. For instance, in this man's account, most scholars agree that Jesus was not just inviting him to come and just kind of follow along, that this is the exact invitation that that Jesus gave to Peter and to John and to James. Here's in essence what most scholars believe, that Jesus was not in fact just inviting him to become part of the crowd. Jesus knew Judas would betray him, and he invited this man to become the one who would replace Judas, to become one of the 12. This is what Jesus said. If you'll stop pursuing possessions as a means to make you happy, I plan to give you a position that not only will you see God displayed, but you'll be esteemed for eternity because of this. Because God always offers more than he takes. And this is not just true in this guy's life, it's also true in the lives of the people who sit here week after week. And so I want to share a story with you of someone who gave up and went all in, and I want you to see what God gave them in return. I want you to check out this story as we finish up of a lady named Christy.
Jesus saved my family. So I grew up in church, but we had a lot of physical abuse in our home. I just carried it with me and carried it into my marriage. Well, I was married for 20 years, but it was a loveless marriage with a lot of issues. I lived in fear most of my life. In 2013, I was pretty sick, and I got a call from the doctor. And he said that they diagnosed me with an autoimmune disease of my blood platelets, and that I was so critical that when he called, he said I probably had about 48 hours to live. That's hard. I had major headaches, and I was losing my vision, and that's when I got the diagnosis of an inoperable brain tumor. And they had told me the only thing they could do for me was gamma knife radiation, a one-day, one-time treatment. After my radiation, they told me I had to wait 6 months for the results. My friends introduced me to Twin Rivers and encouraged me to attend church. So I arrived at Twin Rivers and I met Pastor Joe, and I was honest with him, and I just said, I'm arriving as broken as a person can be. But I knew I had to throw myself all in. So I attended service, I attended Wednesday service, I signed up for life group, and I had to learn to get out of my own way and let God do what he needed to do.
For the longest time, I really thought my mom was going to die. That has been such a hard part for me.
So I was really struggling with my brain tumor, and it started growing. It was inoperable. There was nothing they could do for me. They said I had a 10% chance of it shrinking. That just medically doesn't happen. So the day came when it was time for my results. And I went to the hospital, and the doctor ran in. He swung open the door, and he had a smile on his face, and he just yelled, "We got it, we got it." It worked. That day of my results was February 14th, Valentine's Day. God picked that day to share with me a healing, but he showed me that he was my greatest love of my life. Yes, it was amazing to receive my healing, and I'm so thankful for it. But the greatest gift I received was seeing my children have a personal relationship with God.
I never cared for religion, didn't really believe in anything. But right when I got out of service, I was crying because I loved it so much. At Twin Rivers here, church is not only in church, but it's your whole entire life.
My mom comes to church here now. My dad comes to church here now. It's like every day is Christmas. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I had to get out of my own way and let God direct my path. And his story for me is much better than the story I had for myself.
Come on, isn't that an awesome story for Christy? Celebrate that.